Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Authors on Mission, where we talk about the journeys and messages of impactful writers. Today, we're joined by Dr. Dre Baldwin, author of The Third Day, The Decision That Separates the Pros from the Amateurs, and 28 other books. Dre's fascinating journey from professional basketball player to author to content creator really shows us some unique insights about the writing process. So beyond his books, Dre has built a powerful platform sharing his message through YouTube videos, tackling everything from personal development to critical social community. And he has over 73 million views. So today we're going to explore his writing journey, his mission to spread the third day philosophy, and how he translates his direct, unfiltered voice through multiple media formats, from books to digital content. And I'm excited to dive on in. So, Doctor, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me on, Danielle. And I am not a doctor. I think you just might have, I might have tripped you. My name is just Dre, D-R-E. But if you want to call me a doctor, you can tell everybody that I am. But I'm not a doctor.
That's so funny. I feel like in our emails, I was seeing doctor pop up. I'm so sorry for any.
Yeah, because of the D-R-E. I just spell my name D-R-E. Every once in a while, people see that and they
That's
say
so
doctor.
funny. So at least I'm not the only one who's made that confusion.
No, but if anybody asks you, you can tell them I'm a doctor.
Right. I mean, that's one way to sort of, start a conversation. It's funny because, sometimes you see those things, but it also gives a little bit of authority into your name. But you don't even need that because you have just all these books and content out there that already sort of amplify that and kind of speak to what you do in your message. So it kind of works both ways.
Yeah, now that you said it, though, I might start using it. So
right? Why not?
The other one is people asking if I'm a lawyer when I do live streams. I always get asked if I'm a lawyer. So I think I got 2 new careers I can start claiming.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Dr.
already,
Wood.
part of the name.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, as we dive in, I think it's important for some of our listeners to know a little bit more about you. So as I was looking through all of your materials and content, you've gone from a bench warmer to pro athlete to successful entrepreneur to author, all these different places. I guess my question to you is, what role has, showing up played in each phase? I know that's something important that you've talked about in a lot of your content. I'm wondering perhaps you can give us a little bit of a rundown of each one and sort of how just that philosophy has carried with you through all these different endeavors in your life.
Well, showing up, that's everything, Danielle. Regardless of your talents, beliefs, abilities, potential, even the opportunities presented to you, if you don't show up to do something with it, then it doesn't matter because you'll never get a chance to make anything of it. So that showing up all the time is really what The Third Day, you mentioned that, probably right now my most popular book. That's what it's all about. It's about how do you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it. And probably of all the things that I've written about, probably the one that is most, if I had to just say, differentiates me from other people in my space in the professional and personal development space is that concept of the third day, because everybody understands what it is when I explain it. And everyone is looking for ways for, actually, I do need to figure out a way. How do I give a good effort on those days when I'm not really feeling the energy? So that showing up when you don't feel like it is one thing, and then just showing up, period. Just showing up at all. Just for the chance that something might happen that could help your career or could help you meet the right person or help you solve a problem that you've been struggling with lately. Just the fact of showing up separates you from the competition because most people just don't have the diligence, the persistence, the discipline, the hustle, whatever words you want to use, just to consistently show up for anything. Even if the thing is not going poorly for them, people are just not consistent. And when things are not working, of course, it's easy for people to quit. So just that ability separates you from people. If you can just have that and nothing else, even if you're not very skilled, opportunities can happen for you just because you're in the room.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people might even hold back because they're worried about, if I do show up and I do give it a try, maybe I don't have the skills or the experience, or, maybe they're just nervous in that way. But I like that you have that message, like, just go, just give it a shot. Like if you're there, at least it's one step forward, even if you're a little bit nervous about it. I think that's something incredible to think about. A lot of our listeners today are thinking about writing their books, for example, or they're thinking about taking on another endeavor. how are you going to do it if you don't show up? So I think that's an important thing that applies to anybody.
That's right.
Yeah. And, you did mention the third day concept a little bit there, and I know it's very much explained in your book. I'm wondering if maybe you can give us a little bit of an overview of that for any of our listeners who maybe haven't picked up your book yet and who are maybe interested in learning a little bit more about it.
Sure. So just give you paint a little picture here of the third day would be, let's just say, I don't know when this episode is going to come out, but we're recording it in that last week of the year when most people are doing a whole bunch of nothing, right? So once people start working out, let's say January 1st, and that first couple weeks of the year, everybody's in the gym. Anyone who regularly goes to the gym, the first couple weeks of the year, the gym is crowded because you got all these people you've never seen before. They all of a sudden started using their gym memberships that they had been paying for. They just weren't using it. Or you got a bunch of new people. Then the next couple weeks is the second day. That's the first day. Everybody's excited at the beginning. The second day is that next couple of weeks, maybe into the middle of January, when a few of those people start dropping off, but you still got a lot of new faces showing up to the gym all the time. And by the time you get to around the end of January, around the time of the Super Bowl or Valentine's Day, you're at the third day. And that's when you have the same people who were there at the end of last year are now the same people you see in the gym now. And the third day is all about that time period. It can be a day, it can be an hour, it can be a week, it can be an entire year. When the situation that you signed up for, you come to realize that it's not going to be one big party. It's not all fun and games. The new car smell of the situation, so to speak, has worn off. And this thing that you decided to do is going to take real work. And let's just use an example of authors. You're writing a book. It feels like a great idea to write a book when you're hearing someone talking about writing a book. And you start writing the book. You go open up Microsoft Word or Google Docs and you title it, and this is going to be my book. And you come up with a couple ideas and you jot them down. The second day is when you actually start writing, and you might get a couple hundred words down on paper. And the third day is 6 months later when you remember that document you opened 6 months ago and you haven't seen it since. And you realize, oh, okay, this is actual work to write a book. 50,000 words is not as easy as it sounds when I was talking about it. And the third day is all about how do you show up and give the effort that you're supposed to give, even when you no longer feel like giving that effort. And that's what separates the professionals from the amateurs, because the professional does not have the luxury of not showing up for their work, because by definition, the professional is getting paid for what they do. And as soon as someone offers you money for what you're doing, you are obligated to do the job. Otherwise, you have to get the money back. Most people don't want to give money back, so you have to show up and do your job. Whereas an amateur has the luxury of not showing up when they don't feel like it, because Danielle, nobody's paying them. So if they don't show up, then there's no penalty. So what makes the third day is, first of all, that everyone understands it, because it doesn't matter what you do for a living, everyone runs into a third day. My background is in sports. In sports, we have third days. There are days we don't feel like practicing. We don't feel like training. If you're a parent, there are days you have third days. You might have a third day for a whole year. Any parents out there can remember their first couple of years with a kid. When you're writing a book, you can have a third day just in a process of squeezing out that last couple chapters of the book that you have to get finished, especially if you're on deadline. So the third day applies to everyone. Everyone has experienced it. And what I've found, Danielle, is that when we can put a label on a thing, it's easier to handle it, because now we know what to call it. We understand what it is. We can come to expect it. And then we can come up with tools to do something about it. So that's what the third day is all about.
I think that's really profound, because it does apply to any career, any endeavor that you're trying to get into, just like you mentioned before. I mean, from parenting to writing. And
Right.
I think that's particularly relevant to our listeners today, because especially with the new year coming, I'm sure a lot of us are thinking, my resolution is going to be to write a book.
Right.
Or whatever it might be. But yeah, I mean, you make a very good point. Sometimes you hit the ground running. Like, you're excited, you're inspired, you sit down in front of that computer. But then like a week later, it becomes like, okay, I'm going to wake up early and write. But then you snooze that alarm, and then before you know it, it's been weeks and weeks and weeks. And I'm sure that that's similar to the kind of stories that you've heard from people who have read your book. And I'm guessing you probably go into a lot of detail about how to overcome these different problems and, how we get through it. Like, how do you overcome that lull in the third day concept? Like, how do you get past it and get to, I guess you might call, say, the fourth day and the point where it becomes a routine for you?
Yes, great question. And fourth day is actually part of what that book talks about, part of the structure. So the first thing people have to understand is the third day is really about discipline. And if you were to stop 100 people on the street and ask them, hey, is there any area of your life in which you would like to be more disciplined? Almost everybody will answer yes, and even laugh in spite of themselves, because we all want to do something better. I want to be more disciplined in going to the gym. I want to finish writing my book. I want to launch my podcast. I want to put out that course. I want to spend more time with my husband or wife. I want to take care of my finances better. Everybody wants to be disciplined at something. The challenge is most people just go about discipline the wrong way, in that they try to force feed discipline upon themselves, and then it doesn't work. And then they go into this cycle of, I need to be disciplined. I'm not disciplined. Let me try to make myself be disciplined. It works for a little bit, then it stops working, and they go in this cycle throughout life. This is what most people do. And I know this for a fact because discipline is one of the main things that I talk about. So when I get people coming into my audience and I ask them, what's your biggest challenge? They don't always use the word discipline, but they're usually referring to a discipline that they lack. And then I'll ask them, okay, well, what are you doing, or what do you plan to do to fix the problem? Now, of course, I have solutions, but first I want to know what they're trying. So they'll tell me what they're trying. And usually their answer, Danielle, is some form of, I just have to. And then it's a thing that they already know they need to do, but they're not doing it. Now, that's an inaccurate formula. The reason that's an inaccurate formula, and authors who are listening to this applies to you as well. You saying something like, I want to write my book. Okay, what are you doing to fix the problem of not writing your book? Well, I just had to sit down and write more. LOL. All right, yeah, of course. If that was all it took, you would already wrote the book. You're not doing it. So the challenge with this inaccurate formula is that if you try to force yourself to do something that you already are procrastinating on, is probably not going to happen. That's the reason why you're not doing it. So discipline is a byproduct of structure. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. Many people think discipline is a byproduct of motivation, that if I just watch enough YouTube videos or get excited enough, then I'll be disciplined. That's not true, because motivation comes and goes, and motivation is not consistent. Discipline is consistent. It doesn't come and go. So you can leverage motivation into discipline if you have the right structure. Most people have no structure. This is the reason why they can get motivated yet never be disciplined. Because everybody's been motivated before. You ever been to a business conference? There was a motivational speaker there. All right, you heard them, and they excited you maybe for an hour or a day or two. But as you stay disciplined, a month later, do you remember anything that they said? Probably not, right? So motivation itself is not enough. And trust me, I get hired to do motivational speeches at conferences, so I know this stuff doesn't last. So what you need is a structure. All a structure is something that has a form that tells you do this, then do this, then do this. It tells you what to do, when to do it, where to do it, why to do it, and how to do it. All you have to do is follow the structure and you get a result. A simple example of a structure is when you get in your car and you need to drive to the other side of town, but you're not quite sure how to get there. You put the destination into your Google Maps, you plug it into your phone, and then it comes up on the screen on your dashboard where to go. Those are called directions. Our directions are a structure. If you follow the directions, you get to the destination. You don't have to think. You don't have to come up with your own ideas. You don't have to bring your genius to the table. All you do is follow what the structure, i.e. the navigation, tells you to do, and you end up at the outcome. That's an example of structure. Another example of structure is a calendar. There are many entrepreneurs I know who tell me that their biggest challenge is a lack of productivity, or they don't have enough time, it appears, to do what they want to do in their lives. And I will ask them some questions to find out how they're structuring their days. And come to find out, Danielle, they aren't structuring their days. So they can't answer the question because there is no structure. So they wake up, they get to their office or their home office, or they open up their laptop and they just do stuff. But there's no structure to it. There's no schedule. There's no do this. You have an hour, do this. You have 30 minutes. This takes 15 minutes. There's no structure whatsoever in their day. So by the time they get to the end of the day, they're like, well, the whole day went by and I didn't get anything done. Well, it's because you didn't plan to get anything done because you had no structure. And I'll give you one more example here. Let's say someone's in the gym and they're trying to lose weight or get a six pack or be able to do 10 pull-ups, and they haven't been able to do it. And they are trying to figure out the solution. The solution is not work harder or watch another YouTube video or buy new workout gear from Lululemon. That's not going to solve the problem. The solution to the problem is hire a personal trainer. Why? Because the personal trainer is going to provide structure. The trainer is going to tell you, here's what time we get to the gym. They're going to tell you what to do. They're going to tell you how to do it. They're going to tell you how much of it to do. They're going to tell you when to stop, when to go home. They're going to tell you when's the next time we're going to work out. And they're going to tell you what you can and can't eat between now and the next workout. That's a structure. And if you follow the structure of anyone who knows what they're doing, assuming they have some baseline knowledge, you're going to have discipline come out as the byproduct, so to speak, of the structure. So the biggest challenge people have with discipline is not that you're incapable of having it, but because you're using the wrong formula to get it. So long answer to a short question.
No, it's a perfect size answer because I mean, you need to go into depth and detail to understand exactly what we're referring to here. And, I do agree with you. Like having a structure definitely helps. When it comes to writing, I always tell my clients, you need to structure your schedule and your routine so that you find the time to actually sit down and write. Like there's no excuse if you have a structure in place and you follow that structure. I guess my follow-up question to you is, would you say if there's ever a time that too much structure might deter from that progress? I'm just thinking like, the example of the personal trainer telling you exactly, what to eat, when to come through. Have you ever seen any type of conflict with that maybe you need to overcome and put some flexibility into that structure? I'm just curious. Is that something that you have to deal with?
So two things. First of all, one of the phrases that you use is for people to find the time to do the writing that they're supposed to do. Well, the thing is, time is not lost. All right, time is, we know how much time we get. The day starts at 12 o'clock a.m. and ends at 11:59 p.m. So we don't have to find time because it doesn't go anywhere. It's the only steady that constant we have in life is time. So what we do is we must make the time and block off the time that we're going to use. And when people, and I'm not saying this about you, but when people use that phrase, often they say, well, I haven't been able to find the time, is as if they have to go look for it. You don't need to hire an investigator to find time. All right, it's right there on the clock. All right, you just have to figure out where does it fit in your schedule. And the other question that you asked, the main question that you asked about could the structure kind of be a little bit too regimented? I'm assuming this is kind of what you're asking.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so often I get people asking a question like that, not only around discipline, but also around confidence. And the example that I use, the metaphor that I use is kind of like driving a car with the emergency brake engaged. So it's like when I talk about confidence, I have a book called Super You. It's all about your highest level of confidence. And often when I talk about it, especially when I used to talk to athletes about it, they would say something like, Dre, this sounds good, how to be more confident. However, I don't want to be too confident because I don't want people to think I'm arrogant or cocky or think that I think I'm better than everybody else. And I would say, and I'll give you another example here, metaphorically, it's a story. I remember this girl I knew years ago, about 10 plus years ago. And we lived in the same building. And she knew I was an athlete. And she said, Dre, can you come with me to the gym one time and just show me how to use all the equipment? Because I want to start working out and get myself in shape. And I said, sure, I'll show you how to use everything so you know how to use it. And then you can work out on your own. And she said, well, before we even go to the gym, Dre, first of all, I got to let you know something. I'm not trying to be one of those gym girls that looks like that's a bodybuilder and has all those muscles and looks like a man because she's all ripped and muscular. I don't want to be like that. I just want to get toned and in shape. That's what she said to me. And this is a girl who didn't work out at all. I said to her, and I tell audiences this all the time, how about you worry about coming to the gym 2 days in a row before you worry about having too many muscles? All right, you haven't even started working out yet, and you're worried about having too many muscles. Right? That you're thinking about the wrong problem. Same thing that I would tell people who said, well, I don't want to have too much confidence, so I'll be cocky. I said, you don't even know what it feels like to have too much confidence. You don't know what it feels like to have enough, but you're worried about having too much. And it's the same thing when it comes to discipline and structure. To answer your question here is that people say, well, maybe too much regimenting and too much structure might make my life boring or monotonous. I say, how about we find out first? All right, let's just see what it looks like. If you actually followed through on everything you said you needed and wanted to do, let's see what your life looks like when you do that for a month or a week or a day. And then let's see how you feel. And if you don't like it, then we can go back to doing what you've been doing. But let's try it first. So that's my answer to your question. Let's put the structure in place. Follow the structure, get the results that you want, and then we can measure, the next steps from there. And also, when you have a proper structure in place, doesn't mean you can't step out of it. You can go on holiday, you can go on vacation, you can be sick one day, but when you have a structure, you can hop right back on the horse because you have a structure in place, as opposed to what most people do, which is just basically running around as the proverbial chicken with his head cut off with no real direction, even though you're using a lot of energy.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that definitely answers my question because, how can you guess that there would be too much structure if you haven't even tried it yet? So I understand that, right?
Exactly.
Like give it a try and then you can always adapt it and put that framework back in place later on. And, I think that's really important. And I like they did go back and kind of clarify what I meant by finding the time because, it all has to do with just, making the time and being like, okay, you have this time already in your day, just move some stuff around and there you go, it's going to be there for you. So I think that's all really important stuff, and I think that a lot of our listeners today can draw from that and benefit from it. And I'm sure if they want to learn more about it, all they have to do is pick up your book, find and open the page, and then right there, you'll learn a little bit more about all of this. There's also another concept called the separation day that you talk about in your book. So I guess I'm wondering, how does that kind of play into the third day principle? And is that something that we should also keep in mind when we're, thinking about these structures and routines and all that?
Yeah, and speaking directly of in the time period when we're recording, again, I don't know when people are going to hear this, but everyone can relate to this. Well, first of all, let's say what the separation day is. The separation day is the day when your competition, whoever or whatever that might be, doesn't show up all the way or doesn't show up at all, but you do show up. And what happens on that day is if they're ahead of you, you close that gap just a little bit. And if you are equal to or ahead of them, you open up a little bit more of a separation between you and them. Now, the thing about the separation day is that the difference that gets made up on that day is not visible, is not measurable. So nobody can tell. For example, when I was playing basketball as a youth, there were players in the neighborhood who were better than me, but I practiced more often than them because they were just ahead of me. They started playing before me. So I would be at the park practicing by myself. That player who was better than me would walk by the park. They weren't practicing, and they would say, well, Dre, you're practicing all that time, but I'm still better than you. So you're practicing for nothing, because they didn't understand the concept of the separation day. But over the course of years, from age 14 to let's say 18, I slowly closed the gap, and eventually I surpassed those players. But any individual day, so on Thursday when I'm working out and they're not, it's not like the next day I was better than them. They were still better than me on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. But as the compounding effect of me showing up versus them not showing up started to add up, eventually I surpassed them to the point that you wouldn't even notice that me and them used to be competitors by the time we were 22 or 23 years of age. So that's the concept of the separation day. I'm mentioning the time frame in which we're talking right now as I call this the separation week. And the separation week starts on New Year's Eve and it ends on January 1st, because this is the week during the year when a whole lot of people are doing a whole lot of nothing. They have decided that they're on vacation. They don't have to be at work. And even if they're an entrepreneur, they just want to take this time off. This is the time to relax because everybody else is relaxing and they're going to do nothing. And what I tell people in my audience is that if you're an ambitious individual, and most of the people in my audience have some level of ambition, this is your week to separate yourself from everybody else. So you have your goals set for the following year, starting in January. How about you get to work on them right now? Because during this week, when everyone else is doing nothing, you can separate yourself from the people who are currently your equals, and you can close the gap on people who are currently your superiors because you're working when they're not. And yes, it will actually close the gap in a tangible way, but it's really about a psychological edge. Danielle, that's really what the separation day is about. It's about the psychological edge that you gain knowing that you were working when they were not working, which can make up all the difference. And again, the world that I come from in the sports world, just this slight little mental edge can make the difference between winning a game and losing a game. And knowing that you put the time in, knowing that you put the effort in, and it makes a difference in just the way that you carry yourself and the way that you show up. Knowing that you put the effort in, even if everybody else doesn't know about that effort, because a lot of this effort is done in the shadows, in the dark. And you as an author, you probably understand this very well. And authors listening to this, most of the stuff we do as authors, nobody sees. Only thing people see is the book when it comes out. They have no idea the writing process, the editing process, the back and forth with the editors, the book cover design, they have no idea any of that. All they see is the book when it comes out, and they might read it even if they buy it. Right? They don't know about all the work that you did. So what the separation day is about is just showing up continuously and juxtaposing that with the fact that most people don't have the discipline to show up continuously.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you kind of went over that, because I think the way that you described with the compounding effect is definitely something that kind of resonates, right? Like, it's almost like you're putting your pebbles into a jar and it's overflowing after a while, but nobody knows you're doing it until they see that whole completed concept. Right. I mean, another, I guess, analogy you can come up with is the horse and the hare, right? While everyone else is resting, don't stop, just keep going, even if it's a little bit, and I actually just recently wrote a blog post about this whole gap between Christmas and New Year's where everyone's relaxing. It's actually the perfect time to write, more so than any other time. It's quiet. Exactly. It's, after the holiday stress, nothing else should be on your mind because the gifts are already given out, right? So just relax. And listening to this right now, it's probably a little bit after, that break, but there's always times coming up and holidays where a lot of people are relaxing. You already have the time right there. Make that time yours. I think that's all really important. So I can see how all of this just took you on your path from, the amateur athlete to where you are now, just in every endeavor you've tried. So it's definitely inspiring and something we can all learn from.
Well, thank you. I gotta check one thing you said there. You were talking
Yeah.
about the story of the tortoise and the hare. I
Yeah.
tell people that that's a fairy tale. In real life, a tortoise will never beat a hare in a race. In real life, that wouldn't be a race because the rabbit would win very easily. And I bring that up because I tell people that speed is very important. And I know sometimes, especially with authors, they want to take their time and move. And you probably talk to more authors than I do, but I talk to a lot of people who want to write books, and just entrepreneurs, period, just tend to be extremely slow. They're slow to think, slow to decide, and slow to act. And in real life, the tortoise and the hare, again, does not happen. Slow and steady does not win races. Fast and urgent wins races. And that's the way that we need to think, also the way that we need to behave. So it's, again, not about you. The tortoise and the hare, we were all told that when we were 5 years old, but it's not real.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I wasn't even going along the slow and steady route either. Kind of making the opposite point, right? Like if you
Right.
just more so like if you don't rest and you keep going.
Correct. Yes.
That's funny. I guess there's almost two morals
Yes.
there. Yeah, it's like
Yes.
the tortoise just kept going, whatever speed but you're right. I mean, if you speed it up and you get the book out there, you get whatever it is done faster, then that's just
Right.
moving you along on your path.
Yeah.
I have
Consistent
also,
and fast. Yes, that's what we want. We want the best of each.
may I ask, how long did it take you to write your book, The Third Day? Like, did that years, months, weeks? What did you
Years?
say?
Absolutely not. No. Weeks. And
Yeah, that's more realistic. Yeah.
yeah, the way that I write my books, first of all, I come up with the concept. I make a Google Doc with the title of the concept. And then what I do is I come up with my top line materials. So that end up being the chapter. So let's say I had 10 main ideas. Then once I have those 10 main ideas written out, I do a page break for each one. So I know it's a chapter. And then I just go in there and I just start saying whatever I want to say, whether that's a story, an anecdote. I mean, you hear how I talk now. My books are written the same way that I talk. So I just come up with the points, the stories, the anecdotes, the things to kind of make it all make sense. And I just go down the whole document and do that. And as long as it takes me to do that, that's as long as it takes for the book to come out. And it's usually the post writing. I don't know. What do you call that? After you finish writing, but the book didn't come out yet. But what's that period called?
I mean, what would you like, the revision stage, or just kind of
Yeah,
like?
so like the editing, revising, sending it to somebody to take a look at it, tell you what they think, the book cover design, the formatting, all of that stuff usually takes more time for me than writing. Writing,
Right,
I
because
can
then you're
do
relying on
pretty
other
fast.
people too. The
Yes,
team.
correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. The reason I ask is 'cause I have so many authors and so many listeners right now who say, my book's taken me 2 years, 3 years. And I'm just like,
Yeah, that's
why?
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
at Authors on Mission, we are able to kind of streamline the process even more so by you work with a team, and we call ourselves angel writers rather than ghost writers, but we also have, editing people.
You said what writers? What was that phrase you said?
Angel writers,
Angel
so,
writers. Okay.
yeah, so
I like that.
many people go to a ghostwriter to help them fill in the blanks of their book, or even if they, just need a little of assistance kind of like getting their chapters written. That's what a ghostwriter's for. We're angel writers. But either way,
I like
we
that.
help you kind of stay on track and, so that you're not taking years to write your book, but more so like all we need is like an hour of your time per week, and we're able to kind of help you get those ideas on your page. But either way, whether you're doing it on your own or with a team, just go do it. It shouldn't take you years. So I think that you have a great example of a couple weeks and your process right there. I love that you kind of went into the details because it's as easy as that. Open up the Google Doc. Anybody can do it.
That's right. Especially now with talk to text. I use that a lot. I've been using that probably since 2000 and we're in 2025 now. So probably since 2019, I've been using the talk to text. If I didn't have anything else on my schedule, I could have the writing done for a book in one day.
Yeah. I mean, if you really sat down, you know what you want to say, and especially through the method of the separation of the pages for every topic, you have a
Right.
structure there. You're just filling in the blanks with more thoughts and more anecdotes. So yeah, I can see that. But again, it's always about the other things on your plate that kind of delay it a little bit more. The voice to text is always something that I recommend too, though, especially like if you're busy and you're going on your morning commute to work, start telling Siri about what you want in chapter 1. Right? Like there's no reason why not to get those thoughts down. So I like that you're able to use that too. You're on the go, and if you're making the time to put those ideas on.
Yeah. And the other thing is you can also just record just audio, even if you're not talking to text, because talk to text is there's a skill to it because you have to talk in a way that it writes the right way. But also you can just take, let's say, this conversation right here, send it somewhere, get it transcribed, and then just edit the transcription. So people who don't like to sit down and actually write, there are so many workarounds these days. If you really want to write a book, you can pretty much get it done any way that you're comfortable.
Yeah, yeah, I like that you said that too. I mean, you don't have to sit in front of a computer. You could be just recording yourself talking. And there's
Yes,
so many
exactly.
career websites out there, like you said, that transcribe it and very accurately too. So it's,
Yes, very accurate.
yeah, yeah, very
Correct.
easy to do. Great tip for all of our listeners right now. But Dre, you don't only write books. You have a whole YouTube channel too that's very popular, and you have many videos on there. I was kind of scrolling through a bunch of them, so I guess I'm curious about your process for how do you get so much content out there so quickly and also relevant and profound and meaningful? I mean, you have videos about like why belief needs proof and criminal worship, and a whole video about which I'm interested to talk to you about the why you don't tip people and stuff like that. So I mean,
Gratuity.
I guess the first
Yeah,
question I'd like
funny
to
one.
ask though is how do you manage to get so much content out and so relevant and so impactful every single one? Like, what's that process like?
Well, first of all, I believe I have a gift for it. I think when the internet came around, I saw it and I knew it was for me. This is back in the 90s, before we had, where you can make your own stuff. And it was probably around 2004, 2005 that I found out about blogging. And I could see where it was going. And this is like early days of what became social media. So when you had like Yahoo GeoCities, you remember them? That website?
I
Yahoo.
actually don't know GeoCities,
You
no.
remember GeoCities? So it
I think
was, I might be a
so.
little bit older than you, so maybe not. So GeoCities was like the first place where you could create your own website, but it was like a user-friendly website designer. This is
Okay.
probably 2002, 2003, around that time period, maybe even before that. Then you had a website called MySpace, was like the precursor to
MySpace,
Instagram.
of course. Yeah, we all know
Yeah, that was a
that.
precursor to TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn. MySpace was all of those in one. And when I saw those, that's when I saw, okay, there's going to be a way on the internet where anybody can say whatever they want and have their own space to do it. I could see that then. And I knew it was a space for me because I always knew I had a different way of looking at things. It's not even that I had necessarily completely brand new ideas. I think I have plenty, but it was the way that I was able to articulate them. I always knew that was different. And so I knew I was going to be on the internet somehow, some way. And then when what we now call social media started to come about, starting with YouTube, then the Instagrams and Twitter, now X, Facebook, etc. I just started putting the material out, and I saw people were responding to it. They were responding to the way I was getting my point across, and I just kept doing it. And I said, let me just put my foot on the gas. Again, we've been talking about discipline here this whole conversation. So once I saw that there was an opportunity, I just put my foot on the gas and just kept doing it. So that's where it came from. And as far as the things that I talk about, we've been talking a lot here about basically what is mindset and how it connects to writing books. But my real superpower is not any specific industry or even a specific area of focus. My real thing is just my ability to break things down in a way that is articulate, that I'm being real, I'm being honest, and I'm being direct. And that's what people like about me, regardless of the subject. Whether we're talking about writing books, we can talk about basketball, we can talk about when you go to a store and pick up some food and they ask you, do you want to leave a tip? You didn't do anything. You want me to leave a tip? So whatever it is that I'm talking about, that's what people kind of gravitate towards, and it doesn't really matter the subject. So when it comes to the content, the great thing about the internet as we have it now is that you can literally say whatever you want to say. Of course, there are some boundaries and they'll kick you off apps for saying the wrong thing. Trust me, I know. But you can pretty much say whatever you want and you have an open platform. And then the users, the other people on the app can decide, hey, I like you, I'm going to listen to you more, I'll follow you, or I don't like you, I'm not going to listen to you anymore. And I appreciate that. I am all for the open marketplace of idea exchange. And people don't have to agree with me, but as long as you hear what I have to say and you're clear on it, then you can draw whatever conclusion you want. So that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed you have a lot of controversial like topics that you do take stances on, but
Mhm.
you deliver it in such a way that I think you explain it really well. You're very certain about everything you say, and you have really solid evidence and examples too. So I think like that just goes a long way to showing like, why your viewers and why your audience is so captivated by the content you come up with. I mean, going back to that delivery video, which maybe we could talk a little bit about some background of that so our listeners know.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's great that you balance like personal conviction with it, but also address the potential backlash within the video. too. So
Yeah,
maybe if you don't mind just giving like a little bit of a background to all of our listeners, then maybe we could dive a little bit about how you made that happen,
sure.
because that's something relevant to all of our listeners too, and they also have to address similar topics.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you bringing it up. So I ordered from, well, I live in Miami, Florida. Where are you located?
I'm in New Jersey.
New Jersey. Okay.
Yeah.
So y'all have GoPuff? You ever heard of the app?
Actually, yes. Is that like for some reason I want to feel like it's delivery food delivery.
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
convenience store stuff. So like
Okay.
potato chips, candy, soda.
Yeah,
Like
it's a subscription, right? Service. Like they send it to
you
you
don't have
on
to subscribe.
something.
You can just
No.
order. It's like Uber
Okay.
Eats. The
Okay.
same thing, but it's for
Understood.
like basically you take Walgreens and turn it into an app. That's GoPuff.
Mm. Okay.
So in big cities, it's very popular. So in Miami, I ordered some candy on this app. And I think GoPuff started as an app for people who smoke marijuana. I don't smoke or I don't do any kind of drugs or
I guess
alcohol.
the name would kind of allude to
Yeah,
that.
so I didn't know that was how they talked, but allegedly it's for like people who had the late night munchies because they just got high on some marijuana, so they wanted some potato chips and some ice cream. I guess that's where it came from, but I ordered in the middle of the day. So I ordered some candy, and it was like $15 worth of stuff. Now, any of you uses one of these apps like DoorDash or Uber Eats, you know they add all these fees on top of your order. So your
Not
order,
really $15.
yeah, your stuff is $15, but your actual payment is like $25 because they have a $4 delivery fee and a $3.75 service fee, and then they want you to add a tip. So they did that to me, and they asked you to add a tip. So I gave a $1 tip. It was a $15 order, $1 tip. So the person comes to my building to drop off the food or the snacks, and she called my phone. They usually don't call; they just drop the stuff off at the door. You get a notification, "Hey, your delivery's been delivered." There's a little picture of the food at your door, your
Mhm.
door. And the woman called me and she said, "Hey," first she texted me because I didn't answer the phone. She said, "Hey, if you don't answer the phone, I'm gonna have to cancel your order." So I didn't know what the issue was. And I called her and she said, "I left your stuff at the front desk. And in my building, the front desk will let you upstairs to drop the stuff off." So she didn't bring it to my front door. She left it at the front desk. So I'm like, "Why'd you leave it at the front desk? Was the person at the front desk not there? What happened?" And she said, "I don't know. I don't know." But, and then she said what she really wanted to say, which was, "Hey, anytime you're ordering delivery from us, you need to give us more than a $1 tip because people like me work really hard to deliver your stuff." And then she hung the phone up on me before I had a chance to respond. Now, had I had a chance to respond, I would have said a lot of things to her, but she hung the phone up. I reached out to GoPuff and basically complained about the situation. They basically did a make good by basically gave me the order for free.
Mm.
And that led to me talking about what I'm talking about here, of this whole concept of gratuities and tips. And I don't know how they do it in New Jersey. New Jersey is a big place. My hometown is Philadelphia, so the shout out to people in New Jersey. But in big cities, this has become a normal thing to where, number one, you go to restaurants, they automatically add the gratuity on the bill at 20%. They don't even ask you. Number two, you go to places where you're picking up food. Again, they're not doing anything, but just bringing it from the back and literally walking it to the counter to you. And then they ask you, "Do you want to leave a tip?" Again, who am I tipping and for what? You haven't done anything. I mean, you're doing your job, but I paid for the food. You get paid by your boss. Why am I tipping you? So
Mhm.
I was doing a live stream on this. I think I did one yesterday, but I put these clips out and people respond. And I like talking about these social issues because people are often divided on it. So you have people who might be on the side of the Uber Eats driver and they say, "No, no, if you can't afford the tip, you shouldn't be ordering food." Like, mofo, I can afford it. I'm just not doing it. It's a principle of it's not about whether or not I can afford to tip you $3. It's about that I'm not tipping you because the app that I'm ordering from just charged me a $4 service fee and a $5 delivery fee. Where's that money going? Like, that's between
Yeah,
you and
should
your
the
boss.
delivery fee be part of that tip? I get what
Yeah,
you're saying.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And what a lot of people don't understand is that when those service fees get put in by companies and apps, that money goes to the company and they might give you some of it, but it's not all going to you. And I was explaining this in a live I just did yesterday, as a matter of fact, that if you really want to tip your drivers, give them cash because they can just put that in their pockets and it doesn't get taxed and it doesn't go through the company. But nobody carries cash anymore. Right. So it's screwing over the actual workers. And then the workers are getting mad at us, the customers. Instead, you should be getting mad at your bosses and the companies you work for because they're the ones who set this up. So that was what the whole live was about. And I did like 90 minutes on this. We could talk about this all day, but
Yeah,
that's
I
where
guess
it came from.
true. Yeah, and I mean, like, it's a relevant topic too. I mean, I could see how you get your audience because everybody can relate to that, right? Like, I mean,
Right.
even as you're talking, I'm thinking about like 4 to 5 different examples of my from my own life where like similar things have happened. I've gone to a restaurant, I didn't know that, gratuity would be included for only 2 people, or like
Right.
I've also gone overseas a lot, and there it's automatically in the bill. You don't have to, they don't want you to tip. It's already
Right.
right there. And it's not even that much more or anything. But aside from the fact of that, my point is that you're talking about topics that anybody could relate to. So in
Right.
that way, anybody who clicks on your channel, they're like, oh, like, tipping, like, that's something I'm interested in hearing. So I think it's great that you're not only finding topics that mean something to you and that you have a lot to say about them, but everybody else can also relate to. So that's just like a whole nother level of expanding your reach, I guess is what I could say. Just making a point on that.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think once I started talking, I only started doing this kind of over the last like maybe 3 or 4 months, but talking about a current event or quote unquote social issue, that's where I think I get to kind of show my personality best. Because if I only talk about something like mindset or entrepreneurship or writing a book, you're limiting yourself to a niche audience of people who want to do that thing. But when I talk about a social issue, it kind of opens me up to a wider audience of people, because it doesn't matter what you do for a living, because everybody has an opinion on whether or not you should tip an Uber driver extra as opposed to the fee. Everybody has an opinion on that, whereas not everyone has an opinion on writing a book, because not everybody's going to write one. You know?
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, there's not too much controversial. Like, it kind of is just
Right.
your own mindset and your own availability and whatnot.
Right.
But I guess, going back to that, and however, I mean, people have opinions on everything. I think I asked before, how do you balance that within your videos? You kind of, already plan for what the backlash might be, I feel like, and you get those examples in there. What exactly do you do to ensure that your listeners are hearing all sides of it? And for the most part, I feel like you make very reasonable arguments. So what's that process like? How do you address the backlash in advance?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's not that I necessarily anticipate the backlash. I think I have the mindset of a trial attorney. It's just my natural way of thinking. It's my natural way of speaking. So when I do my live streams, and I was actually talking about this on TikTok just this morning, that when I was talking today, I was talking about lawfare, just this concept. And someone said, "Are you a lawyer?" And I made a joke that we're going to start using every day, because every single day when I'm doing these live streams, Danielle, somebody says to me, "Are you a lawyer?" I literally get asked this question all the time. And I'm not a lawyer. I do not have a law degree, but it's just the way that I talk, and that I kind of like breaking down the facts of the case, so to speak, and explaining, well, listen, this side is going to think this, and I'm thinking this, and here's why this side is better. This is just the way I naturally think, and is the way I naturally talk. And the fact that I have a suit on and I kind of have this, I guess, polished look, people assume that maybe I'm a lawyer. So if I had a t-shirt on saying the same thing, nobody would ask if I was a lawyer. So, and I think to answer your question here is just my natural approach. Also, the other thing is I will respond to people's comments. And a lot of times when people are on social media, especially when they're talking about a controversial, so to speak, topic, or a topic on which people are divided, they will respond to either the people who agree with them, co-signing them, or they'll pick the low-hanging fruit. Like somebody makes some really dumb comment going against them, and they'll use that one as proof that they're responding to the backlash, but they're only responding to like the dumb comments. I'll respond to a good comment of someone who disagrees with me. I'll say, look, I see half of what you're saying there. You do have a good point. However, and then I'll respond to what they say. And also just because I consider myself to be a very logical, and I try to be as objective as possible, that if someone disagrees with me, I can disagree back with their disagreement without attacking them personally, without taking it personally, without getting emotional about it. And I can kind of trash your point without trashing the person. And a lot of people don't have that ability. And that's, again, that's the lawyer in me. You have to be able to do it. You can't go to court and start trashing the prosecutor. You can't do that. You have to stick to the points. You got to stick to the facts of the case, because you're trying to win over the jury. So again, I don't have a law degree, never been in a court of law arguing a case, but I guess the way that I talk, people assume that that's what I do for a living. So I've been trying to figure out, Danielle, how can I start leveraging that? I'm going to tell people I'm not a lawyer, but I do play one on TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, it's more so like, I like what you said, like, you're addressing the concept, not the actual person, right? Like, you're not attacking your audience member, more so just like laying out your opinion. And I feel like you do a good job of maintaining consistency too, between like your books, your podcasts, your YouTube. Like, you have one message, you're sticking to the message, you're standing your ground about it, and you're not letting like all of that feedback alter in any way. That's like a whole nother, side of it too. I guess it's that lawyer in you, right? The metaphorical lawyer, as we could say. But just another whole, think our audience can take with them today after this podcast and hold on to is, you're standing your ground, you're responding to everybody's messages, and, you're not afraid to let your voice get out there. You're presenting it in a way that it could be reached and understood regardless of the context. And I think that's incredible.
Yeah, well, as long as stuff keeps happening. So what I tell people is I talk about current events or social issues. So as long as something's happening on the news, quote unquote, the news, then I can come up with content. So that's what I just look for it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's all you have to do is just stay informed of what's going on.
Right.
And, I guess, on the topic of staying current, I mean, I guess I have to ask what's next for you? I mean, you have a book out, you have your YouTube channel. What's next on your radar? I mean, I'm sure you're not stopping here. Are we thinking more books, more content? What's your game plan?
I want to put a whole lot more books out there. I mean, the way that technology is these days that we've discussed here in this conversation, it is for someone like myself who has experience sitting down and actually typing out a book. Now it's so easy that I can put out a book a month if I wanted to focus on that. But there's a lot of books that I still want to put out for whatever reason. Now we're talking about content here, Danielle. You can tell me what you think, but for whatever reason, books have a much longer shelf life than internet content. So a live stream that I did last week is already old, but a book, if I put it out 10 years ago, it could be new to somebody if they heard about it today. The reason that I've come up with is that the written word is just more respected than the spoken word. That a YouTube video is old in a month, but a book could have come out 100 years ago. But if you just found out about it, you don't care that it came out 100 years ago. So the most important documents in the world are written down. All religious texts are written down. Contracts are written down. If the IRS reaches out to you, they write it down. They don't call you. Everything is written down. Books are written down, and books are highly respected. There's no library for YouTube videos, but there's a library for books. So just want to get a lot of my stuff that is spoken, that I've spoken about already, but get it into a written format and put it into a book. So in 2025, I might release 10 books. I might do more, but I have already got the concept for almost all of them ready. So it's just a matter of post-writing process. So that's the sales funnels and the emails and follow-up sequences and the book designs and then launching it on Amazon and the marketing sequences to sell each book, or do I want to sell them in bundles, or how I'm going to do it to make sure each book gets enough breathing room to actually sell. So that's the part that takes up most of the time for me, because I'm much more of a marketer than I am an author. I'm both, but marketing is the part that makes the book actually get read as opposed to just writing it. So that is what I'll be looking at on the book side. Were you about to say something?
I was going to ask, are you working with a team for your marketing, or is that sort of something that you're doing on your own based on your channel and your content?
Well, marketing is my thing. That's my zone. Is everything that I put out, marketing is the main thing that I have to do. So I work with people for certain aspects of marketing, but I am the head marketer in my business. And then the other piece is just the university. So that's Work on Your Game University. That's where I do all my high ticket coaching, consulting, speaking, sales training, things like that. So those are the main focuses in the business. And then one last thing is just getting more into AI and automation. And those things, basically what they do is reduce the man hours necessary to get certain things done. So you will probably know better than I do, but there's probably software either out or in the works that can do book editing that would mean we don't need book editors the same way we needed them before. Maybe not completely eliminate them, but they're working on it. Cover designers, same thing. Formatting, same thing. So it's getting into more AI and automation, not necessarily for the books for me, but let's say in our CRM, the follow-up emails we have to send, and making sure the right links are in the emails. And there is software that can do all this stuff, but I'm not a developer. So it's getting the right developers in place who can execute my vision. I already know what the vision is. As long as they can do what I'm explaining to them, I think I'm pretty good at explaining. And what it does is allows you to automate more of what you're doing work-wise, and to connect this to what we were just talking about. I was saying this yesterday, that if you're an Uber Eats driver complaining because you didn't get a $5 tip, all right, wait till you see what Jeff Bezos is working on. There's going to be drones that replace you, so you won't have a job. And the point is that people need to learn how to use artificial intelligence and use automations, because then you can sell what you know how to do to people like me who are looking to have it done. So you're either going to be on the side that gets used or the side that is using. And that's really bigger picture, even outside of the scope of what I do specifically. That's what I'm looking to do myself, even though I'm not a developer, but getting the right pieces in place that I can help entrepreneurs, authors, whoever, with certain aspects that they need, that they would be doing manually, but now we can do it through some form of automation or artificiality, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you that, there's some level of, benefit in making sure that it's automated so that you can focus your attention and skills on, the actual writing and the actual content creation, and putting the graphic designs, for example,
Right.
as something that AI can do. However, I do think this might be another topic for one of your videos because there's a lot of people out there, myself included, who have to argue that, as much as AI can replace a lot of humans, when it comes to things like writing and editing, it's usually not that great. So I think that might be even something we can have
Fair
another
enough.
podcast about and kind of debate back and
Right.
forth because I actually just came up with a whole, blog post and YouTube series myself about how, you can plug in, your whole story into an AI generator like ChatGPT and be like, this is the book that I want to write about
Oh
my
yeah, they
business
suck.
journey.
Yeah, it'll be trash. Yes,
Yeah, I
you're
mean,
right
you
about
wouldn't
that.
believe
Yes.
the amount of there's so many authors who
Yeah.
come to me saying, this is my book, and I open it up and I'm like, okay, right here we're saying we delve into this content and in this great tapestry of life. I'm like,
All right.
this is the AI computer talking right now. That's not how you're talking. So,
Right.
whole
So
other ballpark right there. Yeah.
yes, I'm glad you brought that up because AI is not there yet. I think maybe in, who knows, 10 years, I'm conservative. It may start to get there, but I also at the same time believe that there are certain jobs in life and certain tasks that you need human soft skills to do. And I believe that writing is one of them, especially if you're telling your own story, your narrative. There's a narrative, you can't give it to ChatGPT. They can't do it. If it's just information based, ChatGPT can do it. But anything that's narrative based, you can't just give that to a computer or some software and say, write something for me because it's going to be garbage. And it'll be very obvious to people who read a lot, like people like myself and people like yourself. So what people need to develop is either option one is learn how to use it. Option two, get used by it. Option three is you must develop some human level soft skills that cannot be replaced by a computer. Those are the only ways that you will matter 5 years from now. And again, people think this is like the Jetsons 50 years in the future. No, we're talking like in the next 5 years. You must develop some human soft skills that can't be replaced by a computer. Otherwise, you're going to get replaced.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's something else you should talk about in your next video too. I mean, like to make
Yeah.
yourself valuable and marketable, especially when we're
Right.
gonna have these computers replacing us. But yeah, in the context of like book writing and publishing, editing, I mean, you need a human to do that a lot of the times. I mean, otherwise the computer it's based on data, it's based on other
Right.
people's work. It's repeating used content. Like that's just one example of how you need that. But definitely something to think about is making yourself marketable and those soft skills, like you said.
Yes. Anything that involves dealing with other people in a level that I don't know if you saw the video where they had like the AI bar, not the AI, but the robot
The
bartender.
bartender, yes, yeah.
Yeah, right. So some people are okay with that. If I go to a bar, I just want the drink, I'll take it from the robot. But there are
Yeah.
other people out there who go to the bar because they want to talk to the bartender. Like they want to talk to a human.
Yeah, yeah, the,
So they go to
the
the bar.
experience of it, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So again, you need to develop a skill that can't just easily be replaced by some code because a robot doesn't go on vacation. They don't need health benefits. They don't go on break. They don't get sick. They don't have kids. So it's just everybody needs to figure out how do you future proof yourself? That's the phrase that I use. You got to future proof yourself with some abilities that can't be replaced.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess kind of tying that piece of advice back into the main, discussion that we had today is, one way you can future-proof yourself is taking advantage of that third day principle, right? Like set yourself on a path, keep working at it, don't let anything deter you from it. And the more you're working on improving yourself, the more you'll be more marketable in this whole changing world of technology and advancements, right? I mean, you can't just stay stagnant. You got to keep adapting to whatever it is. And that's how your whole philosophy is, you know, that third day, not letting yourself take a break. Well, for the most part, you know what I'm getting at, right?
Yes, exactly. And continuing to stay ahead of, as Wayne Gretzky is famous for saying, don't skate to where the puck is at, skate to where it's going. And you're looking ahead in the book world. Let me ask you then, flipping around on you here, where do you see the publishing world going, being that we do have automation and AI? Where is the opportunity?
I mean, in terms of book publishing, I think it's still something
Yeah.
that, you need a whole team of people with. I mean, you can't just
Mhm.
sit down and, with Amazon, these days, sure, you can self-publish and throw any content out there. But, there's a whole difference between the quality of just like AI generated outlines that people call books versus like books that a human can put their touch on. So in the future, if we want to keep ourselves more, current and able, we need to make sure that we're knowledgeable about these technology advancements. Like, we need to be aware of what they're able to do, but also find ways to make sure that we're able to improve upon and build on the concept. So I guess in a way, maybe integrating a little bit, but also you need that human there to take the content and put life into it, like we talked about before. So
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so it's just figuring out how can you leverage this stuff and not get leveraged is really the bottom line of it. What I tell.
yeah, that's a great way to put it, to leverage it without being leveraged.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and not falling too much into the trap, but also making sure it's humanized still.
Correct.
But yeah, I mean, so I think as we start to wrap up today's conversation, we have a lot of amazing points that our listeners can take home with them today. The idea of staying ahead of trends, the idea of, taking current events and using that for your content, framing it in ways that, your audience can resonate with, but also that present both sides of a topic. And also, of course, the third day concept in general, too. So I guess my question to you as we start to wrap up today, what's one more piece of advice that we can kind of leave our readers with to kind of tie a bow on everything that we've talked about today? What can we leave them with as we wrap up?
That's a great question. On what topic? We talked about so many different things.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, let's talk about writing. When they end this podcast today and they go and they want to look up your content, for example, they're going to be looking through, where can they direct themselves first so that they continue and guide a message from? Should we be going to a specific video of maybe the third day book? Where can we guide them to next?
Well, if you want to get the third day book, you can just go to thirddaybook.com. So just spell that book out. You can get a free copy of the book, just cover the shipping. Again, thirddaybook.com. We got hardcover, paperback, you got audio, digital, all of that. As far as the writers out there, the most important thing is open up your calendar and put scheduled time in your calendar to actually sit down and write. And it needs to be consistent time to sit down and write. So when you put the thing in your calendar, if you're using a digital one, then you need to do the repeats. So repeats every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 4:00, or every day for 30 minutes. And you need to give yourself not only a specific amount of time, but also a specific amount of output. And a lot of people will only do one or the other. They'll do, okay, I need to write 500 words no matter how long it takes. Or I'm going to write for 30 minutes no matter how many words I write. You need both. I need to write 500 words and I have an hour. And the reason why you need both is because that puts pressure on you to actually get a certain amount done within a certain time frame. The reason why that matters, and the bigger picture, whether we're talking about book writing or anything else, is that every human being has a shelf life. We all will eventually expire according to current science. Nobody lasts forever. So we need to be urgent about getting as much done within this lifetime that we have before that lifetime runs out. And the way that you get more life out of your life is by doing what I call compressing time frames. And the way you compress a time frame is to get the same things done, you just get it done faster. So for example, if you want to write a book, let's say you have 10 books you want to write in your lifetime. You want to write one book per year for 10 years. If you can start, instead of taking a year to write a book in 6 months. Now, when you get the first book done, instead of 12 months, you took 6 months. So you just bought yourself 6 months of time. You get what I'm saying? How that math works? So now you just have 6 extra months of surplus that you just added to your life, so to speak. Whereas on the other hand, if you took a year and a half to write a book, you just stole 6 months from your life. So now your life is going to be metaphorically 6 months shorter because you took 6 months longer than you were supposed to take to finish the book. So the faster you can get things done, the more time you buy. Because if I can get one book done in 6 months, so now I can get the next book done in 6 months. Now I just added 6 months to my life. And now if I get all 10 done in 5 years instead of 10, I just bought myself 5 years of time because I was able to move faster. But the only way we can compress time frames is we have to put pressure on ourselves. And that may induce a little bit of stress, this pressure, to get more things done. Now, the good thing about stress is that there are 2 different ways to look at stress. There's distress. That's the kind of stress that makes you feel old and tired and useless and you want to go to bed. And then there's eustress. Eustress is a real word, eustress, is known as the good type of stress. It's also called hermetic stress. The biohackers call it hermetic stress. And it's a positive stress. This is the kind of stress that you take on when you join a CrossFit class or you sign up to run a marathon or you go to the gym. You know it's going to be hard, but you do it anyway because you believe it's going to make you better. So this is the positive kind of stress to collapse time frames and move when you don't feel like moving to get more things done. That allows you to live more life within a life that you have so that you have more legacy to leave behind for whoever's going to follow after you, whether that be your kids, your fans, your readers, or whoever else.
I think that's beautiful because, you only have a certain amount of time on this earth. You can't be pushing things back, making things take longer when they don't have to. So I think the idea of putting some pressure on yourself, I mean, in this day and age, a lot of people say like, mental health is really important. It is. But, you
Right.
need that eustress, like you said, because otherwise, you're just sitting back on the couch all day. You got to do something to make sure you're making the most of your time, getting your ideas out there. And I think you're a perfect
Right.
example of that. So to all of our listeners today, I think we can use Dre's ideas and his, work so far as just a perfect example of how, if you sit down and you make the time and you put a little bit of that pressure on yourself, you can accomplish anything. So that's a great piece of advice to leave yourself with today. Thank you for that.
Of course. And thank you for the questions.
Yeah, thank you for joining us all in all. And, to our listeners listening today, I mean, I think it's pretty clear how his experiences are a great example of how writers can maintain, their authentic voice and their message across many different platforms and mediums, while also staying true to your message. And whether you're addressing personal development or tackling social issues, whatever it is that you want to do in your own work, Dre's work reminds us that when an author's mission gets onto the page, you can take that and put it into many different areas, your content, your podcast, your YouTube channels, whatever it is. So thank you for that amazing example. And hopefully our listeners today can take it and run with it and, pick up the Third Day book, guys, read it through, take those messages to heart because it's only going to help you transform your own lives too. So again, thank you for joining us today. And, it's been a true pleasure. And I hope to, maybe we could chat more someday about all the AI effects, the pros and cons, all that. But in the meantime, again, thank you for the talk. And to our listeners, be sure to check out another episode. And in the meantime, keep leading, keep inspiring, keep writing. And we'll see you next time. And Dre, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Well, thank you for sharing your platform. Thank you for the opportunity. And to the listeners, if y'all want to hear us do a part 2, you let Danielle know. Maybe part 2.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll definitely reach out and try to schedule a time.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So thank you again, everybody. Have a great night.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.